Hello, hello. I'm going to wait for a minute and let people come on to the platform as I begin to talk today. I want to talk today about restoring personal power. And, when I plan to come on and talk about something completely different. And, in light of the recent events, I wanted to come on and talk about how we begin to, in the face of all of this that's going on, and this is, I could say so much, but in the face of all that's going on, it could occur like, it could feel like a loss of power. I know for myself, I didn't sleep well last night. And that's saying a lot because I'm a pretty good sleeper. Rightfully, there will be a lot of emotions after witnessing the act of terrorism that happened yesterday on our Capitol. And this is on top of all of the things that have been going on over the last year. We're coming up on a year anniversary of COVID, of our the pandemic, the country shutting down, of losing people close to us, myself losing colleagues, being home with our children 24/7. We're coming up off of all of this, and then this happens. And the holidays, for some may have been bittersweet. I think what's important is to be able to process all of these emotions. And so what I wanted to talk about is in having the emotions, in being with the emotions, allowing them to be, but versus not getting stuck in them. How do we restore personal power? So one of my mentors used to say, hey, and everybody that's joining, I appreciate seeing you here. And also, if you have anything that you want to chime in about as I'm talking about processing emotions, I would love to bring you up. Last on Monday, we did a live where we brought up and we had a little conversation, and it's a great way to spontaneously meet people. So it's normal to have emotion, and we know this. I think that especially like people like me, if you're like me, where you're high achieving and you're used to go and pushing through it, we kind of have to keep it moving. So sometimes we can suppress that emotion. But when things like this happen, the emotion is going to come whether we like it or not, right? And you may be feeling anger, you may be feeling sadness. Even people who are non-people of color might be feeling a little guilt. But primarily the emotions are probably anger and sadness, and maybe fear for some people. And it would be a normal thing. It would be a normal thing to feel these emotions. And what we have to be mindful of is the trap of getting stuck in the emotions. Because, let's face it, this thing is it's not going to end just because they have restored what they call order in the Capitol. This is something that has been going on and has been a source of high emotion and high tension, and will probably continue to go on over the next however long, months, could be a year, I don't know. And so what do you do then to protect your soul, to protect your spirit, to protect your emotional well-being while witnessing all of these acts, this trauma? Because all of this is very traumatic, and it's primarily traumatic. I mean, it's traumatic probably. Yesterday was probably traumatic to everyone in the country, but this is very much traumatic to people of color, to Black people, because we know if this had been a different circumstance, that there would not have been people in the Capitol. There would have been something else, right? Called dead bodies. And so it's traumatic to see that this is the foundation of our country. This culture of white supremacy is alive and well. And so we know that this is not going to end overnight. So how do we process this emotion? How do we deal with this and restore our personal power so that we can be the most contribution that we can be in our circles? And if you are anything like me, sometimes we feel a sense of helplessness to even impact the situation. I remember even when back when COVID first started, and as a physician who is now transitioned out of clinical medicine, who primarily supports other healthcare professionals, supports other professionals in general now in the space of processing emotion and mindset and the unconscious mind, I felt helpless because I wasn't out there on the front lines like I thought I should be. However, what I came to realize is that if I impact my immediate circle of influence, they will impact their circle of influence, and then the impact is there. So, I know sometimes it feels like, what is there to do? And we sit in this anger and the sadness and maybe even some fear about this as we continue to see all of these things happening. Well, the first thing there is to do is to limit exposure. All right, we want to protect what we put in our mind, because we have experienced enough trauma and trauma that not only trauma that we might have experienced in our lifetime, but trauma that maybe has been passed down through generations of traumatic events that have happened over the last 400 years. So we got to get that we're already dealing with inherited trauma, epigenetic trauma. We're dealing with now personal trauma, maybe from our childhood. And now we're dealing with this societal societal trauma that's being put in our face. So we have enough to deal with. And what I think is powerful to do right now is to begin to limit exposure. Don't put in front of your eyes. Don't give that stimulus to your eyes. You know what's going on. You know this is probably not going to be the end of it. It's good to actually know what's going on in the world, but you don't have to glue your eyes to it, right? So I think that that's one of the first things that you can do to begin to restore personal power is to limit exposure, limit sensory exposure to all of these things that are going on, all right? It doesn't mean you don't have to talk about it. It doesn't mean you can't have emotion about it, but you want to make sure that you're protecting your space, all right? So with the second thing there is to do is to allow the emotion to come. And, I'm a fan of digging deeper. That's the work that I do with NLP, with hypnosis is digging deeper. So you allow the emotion to be there, and how you avoid getting stuck with the emotion, because this is the difference between being at the source and being at the effect of the circumstances that are going on, is you can feel the emotion without being at the effect of the emotion. Right? You can feel the anger. I certainly have been feeling anger, right? But you have to remember that you are not your emotion. You feel an emotion. You experience an emotion. You are not an anger. You are not a sadness. You are not a fear. But you experience that in the moment and for however long that moment is. So then, to not get stuck in it, acknowledging that the emotion is there, right? And it's really calling it by name. It's calling it by name, because the anger could be there and we could be ranting about everything that's going on and talking about, if this were, like just what I said, if this were Black people and and this is, and we could do that. And I think it's actually healthy to express that. And once it's been expressed, we want to kind of put a limit to how long we're going to stay in that narrative, so that we can then allow ourselves to experience the emotion and process through it so that we can now be productive in whatever part we're going to play in contributing to now the transformation of this conversation. However, whatever industry you're in, whatever you do, wherever you work, how you can make a difference in that is by not getting stuck inside the emotion, becoming at the effect of your emotion, but then calling it by name, and people whom you trust to, how should I say, people who you trust to not always commiserate with you, but to listen powerfully to you, and then allow you to empty your basket, allow you to empty your basket of emotion so that you can, come to that space of relative peace. I'm going to say relative peace in the moment to be able to move forward and be fueled to take whatever action you feel is necessary to take, even if it's just personal action. And then we must take self-care measures. We must actively take self-care measures. One being, like I said earlier, limiting exposure. But what are the things that you can do to connect with, to bring that love back into the safe space of your being? How can you create that safe space just right immediately with you, right? Whether it's with family or whether it's a trusted, committed listener. And I say committed listener versus friend because, there are friends who can be committed listeners, and there are friends who can be commiserators and can keep you in that cycle of emotion, right? But to be powerful, you want to allow and feel the emotion, and then be able to step through it, move through it, and so that you can be the most productive that you can be. Does that make sense? Type in the chat box if it makes sense, right? So I've covered, limiting exposure, and I've covered, having a committed listener, and allowing the emotion to come, calling it by name. When you call your committed listener, to say that I'm feeling anger. I'm so angry right now. And I'm a little bit afraid, and this is sadness and allow yourself to empty that basket. And that way you allow your mind to process through it. All right. Now, let's be clear. Some of this will bring up old stuff for some of us. Old anger, old sadness, old fear, old hurt, old guilt for some of us. Some of us, it'll drudge up other things. Especially if you're old enough to have experienced, personally experienced racism in the past. And I say old enough, but I think at this point it's just at every age. So I don't want to exclude our young people, because it really is at every age. Even our children are experiencing it, which is, that's a sadness. And if you are listening and you're old enough to have lived in sort of days of segregation, or if you've lived in a state or a city where you live next door to the Klan and the Klan was very active, that's where I grew up, then it may dredge up some old emotion. And I think it's important not to resist that, not to ignore it, not to try to push it down. And I know that, of course, there's appropriate times to deal with things, and then there's times where you need to anchor yourself in the now. Anchor yourself in the now so that you can get through the day into a safe space where you can emote in this way. But don't resist that, whatever that is that comes up, because the more we resist, the more it persists. And then, we talk about the trauma that's been passed down. Well, this trauma affects our physical well-being as well, right? Why do you think we are more predisposed to hypertension and diabetes and inflammatory diseases and certain cancers? It's because there's a baseline inflammation that comes with just being Black, with just being a person of color. So I just wanted to bring that today, because I feel like that there's a lot of emotion that's going to happen. And because this is not something that is an overnight fix. I mean, look, we didn't get this way overnight. We are certainly not going to resolve it overnight. And we're going to see more unrest, most likely. And unfortunately, we're probably going to see more violence. And we need to be prepared to put a structure in place to take care of ourselves so that we can protect ourselves, protect our families' spaces, right? And we can be productive so that we can make the impact that we want to make for ourselves, for our families, and for the community. And so that we can remain well physically and mentally as well, right? And it takes, number one, it takes the willingness to not do it alone, because look, we have a community. There are communities, and there are safe spaces as well. And I think sometimes what we try to do is do it all internally and figure it out all inside of ourselves. And that doesn't work, y'all. It doesn't work. And I came to learn that the hard way. I've experienced deep depressions and anxiety, and I've tried to fix it on my own. And I actually have a whole live that I wanted to do, that I will do probably next week, about the difference between self-help and self-development, personal development, right? But when it's good to do self-help, it's not like it's bad, but it only takes you so far. And so we want to make sure that as we move forward in whatever state of emotion that you're in, and you may be okay, you may be listening to this and be like, you know what, right now I'm good. And if a wave of emotion comes, let's not resist it. Don't make yourself wrong for having it, and don't get stuck in it. Right? Call your committed listener. If you don't have a committed listener, be in a community. And I have to say, one of the new Clubhouse platform has actually been a space where there can be some healing, because there are some lively conversations, wonderful conversations going on that allow people safe spaces to emote, but then create solution, of course. And so, if you ever want to meet me on the Clubhouse, my same handle here at Dr. Maisha is my handle on the Clubhouse. Feel free, because I have a lot of conversations around emotion, processing emotion, creation of the day, resetting the day, resetting the week. And I like to provide those safe spaces live and in conversation. So at the end of the day, it's okay to feel whatever you're feeling. I want to give everyone permission right now to feel whatever it is that you're feeling. And what are the structures that you can put in place? And who are the committed listeners in your life that you can access, or in your community if you don't have anyone personally? Because I was speaking with someone yesterday that said that she didn't have that committed listener in her personal life, but she had access to community of safe space. And so what is that for you? And what actions will you take to take care of yourself? Whether it's, go and exercise, or whether it's cuddle up with your kiddos, or whether it's cuddle up with your significant other, whether it's just having some quiet time to meditate and to just decompress and process. What are those structures that you're going to put in place for yourself so that you can really allow yourself to process through whatever emotion you are feeling? And remember, you call that emotion by name so that doesn't get stuck with you and you don't begin to experience the physical symptoms of that emotion. Okay? Happy to man the comments. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll be, checking in. I'm gonna download this to IGTV like I do all of my mind remapping conversations on IG Live. And like I said, if you're in the Clubhouse and you want to check me out at Dr. Maisha, I'm gonna be holding some conversations in some safe space rooms as well in the Clubhouse. You've got your homework. And if you want to know a little bit more about how to reach out to me other than on about what I do in terms of the mind remapping, you can either message me directly, or you can click the link in my bio, or you can join me in one of the rooms on the Clubhouse. Okay? So you guys go have a great day. decompress, process out, get in touch with your community, your committed listeners, and know that I love you, like really, really. And I look forward to being able to support you as we go forward along the way. Okay? We'll talk soon. Peace.